The diplomatic station floated in the darkness between stars. Nexus 7 was built on neutral ground, a place where species could talk instead of fight. Today, it would host a meeting that would change the galaxy forever. Admiral Porter stood near the window of the human delegation room. She was 62 years old with gray hair cut short and eyes that had seen too many battles. Behind her, Ambassador reviewed his notes one final time. He was a thin man with a calm face, but Porter could see the tension in his shoulders. "They will not listen," Porter said quietly. "They have conquered 12 species in 10 years. They think they cannot lose." Looked up from his papers. "We have to try. War with the Empire would cost millions of lives." "War is coming whether we want it or not," Porter replied. "The only question is whether we fight on our terms or theirs." The door opened and Commander Shaw entered. He was young for his rank, barely 40, but he had earned his position through skill and courage. "The delegation has arrived. High Overlord himself came." Raised his eyebrows. The supreme ruler, he must be confident. "Or arrogant," Porter said. They walked together through the station's curved hallways. Other species watched them pass. Some looked at the humans with curiosity. Others looked with something like pity. They had never lost a war. Everyone expected this meeting to end with human surrender. The conference chamber was large and round with a high ceiling. On one side sat the delegation. They were tall creatures, almost 3 meters high, with 4 arms and skin like dark purple stone. Their eyes glowed yellow, and when they moved, it was with the slow confidence of predators who feared nothing. High Overlord sat in the center. He was larger than the others, with golden bands around his upper arms that marked his rank. He looked at the humans the way a person might look at insects. "So these are the humans," said. His voice was deep and rumbled like distant thunder. "I expected something more impressive." Stepped forward and bowed slightly. "High Overlord, I am Ambassador. We come to discuss peace between our peoples." Made a sound that might have been laughter. "Peace? There is no discussion. I have come to deliver terms. You will surrender all human colonies in the Orion sector. You will pay tribute to the Empire. You will accept our rule. If you refuse, we will take what we want by force." The other officials shifted with amusement. They had heard this speech before with other species. The answer was always the same in the end. Kept his voice steady. "High Overlord, I must warn you that humanity will not accept these terms. We have no desire for war, but we will defend ourselves." "Warn me," leaned forward. "Little creature that have crushed civilizations older than your entire species. We have ships that can burn worlds to ash. What warning could you possibly give that would concern me?" Admiral Porter stepped beside. "May I speak?" Waved one of his 4 hands. "Let the soldier talk. Perhaps she will be more amusing." Porter did not smile. "High Overlord, I am Admiral Porter of the United Earth Defense Fleet. I have fought in 3 wars and commanded ships for 30 years. I am not here to amuse you. I am here to give you information that may save your empire." The room grew quiet. No one had ever spoken to this way. "You have conquered 12 species," Porter continued. "I have studied each conquest. Your enemies were peaceful. They had small militaries. They surrendered quickly because they thought resistance was pointless. Humanity is different." She touched a control on her wrist, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the room. It showed footage of human military exercises. Massive warships moved in perfect formation. Fighters launched in waves. Ground forces trained in harsh conditions on a dozen different worlds. "Earth is what we call a," Porter said. "Our gravity is heavy. Our weather is violent. Our animals are predators. We evolved to survive in conditions that would kill most species. We have been fighting wars among ourselves for 10,000 years. We are very, very good at it." Watched the footage with his glowing eyes. Then he laughed, a deep booming sound that echoed through the chamber. "Tricks and lies," he said. "You show me pictures and expect me to be afraid. They showed me similar displays before we destroyed them. The claim to have powerful weapons before we burned there. Your threats are no different." "They are not threats," Porter said. "They are facts, and they are your only warning." Stood, he towered over the humans like a mountain of purple stone. "I came here expecting to accept your surrender. Instead, you insult me with foolish boasts. Very well. I give you 30 standard days to reconsider. After that, the fleet will come, and we will show you what happens to species who defy us." He turned and walked toward the door. His officials followed. "High Overlord," called out, Please reconsider. This war will not end the way you expect. Did not look back. 30 days, human. Use them to say goodbye to your colonies. You will not see them again. The door closed behind him. Commander Shaw let out a breath he had been holding. Well, that could have gone better. Shook his head slowly. I tried, God help me, I tried. Admiral Porter watched the empty doorway where it stood. Her face was calm, but her eyes were cold and hard like steel. She said quietly, send a message to Earth Command. Tell them negotiations have failed. Tell them to begin mobilization. Are you certain? Once we start this, there is no going back. Porter turned to face him. They made their choice. Now they will learn why every species that knows humanity treats us with respect. They will learn why the old races call us the sleeping giant. She walked toward the door. Where are you going? Asked. Porter paused. To my ship, we have a war to win. Shaw fell into step beside her as they left the chamber. Admiral, do you really think we can beat them? Their fleet is 3 times the size of ours. Porter allowed herself a small smile, the first one Shaw had seen from her all day. Commander, they have no idea what they have just started. They see our numbers and think they know our strength. They are wrong. Humanity does not fight with numbers. We fight with will. We fight with creativity. We fight until the last human is standing, and even then we find a way to win. They reached the docking bay, where the Earth vessel Resolute waited. 30 days, Porter said as they boarded. That is enough time. When they come, the sky above New Montana burned orange with the light of 500 warships. Governor stood on the balcony of the Colonial Administration building and watched them descend through the clouds like a swarm of metal insects. How long do we have? She asked. Her military advisor, a young officer named, checked his display. Maybe 2 hours before they reach weapons range. Governor, we need to start the evacuation now. Had been a soldier once, 20 years ago. She had hoped those days were behind her. Now she understood that some things never truly ended. Sound the alarm, she said. Every civilian transport launches immediately. Get the children out first. The sirens began to wail across the capital city of Riverside. People ran through the streets toward the evacuation points. Parents carried small children. Elderly citizens helped each other walk. Everyone moved with fear but also with purpose. They had trained for this day, even though they had prayed it would never come. Was a pilot, one of the best in the Colonial Defense Force. He was 28 years old with dark hair and quick hands. His squadron consisted of only 40 fighters, old models that had been retired from Earth's main fleet. Against 500 warships, they had almost no chance. But almost no chance was not the same as no chance at all. All pilots to your ships, said into his communicator. We are not here to win, we are here to buy time. Every minute we give the transports is another 1,000 civilians who escape. Understood. 40 voices answered together. Understood. The fighters launched from the Colonial airfield and climbed toward the approaching fleet. They looked like small birds flying toward a storm. Fleet Commander 7 watched from the bridge of her command ship as the human fighters approached. She was considered one of the finest military minds in the Empire. High Overlord had given her a simple order: crush the human colony and leave no doubt about power. Commander, one of her officers said, the humans are sending fighters against us. 7 made a dismissive gesture. 40 small craft against 500 warships. They must know this is suicide. Should we destroy them? Yes, show them how foolish their resistance is. The ships opened fire. Beams of energy cut through space toward the human fighters. But the humans were not where they expected them to be. Had studied every report about tactics. He knew they relied on superior numbers and overwhelming force. They expected enemies to fly in straight lines and fight in formations. They had never faced an opponent who fought differently. Break and scatter, ordered. Attack pattern Delta, hit their sensor arrays and run. The human fighters split apart like water droplets. They moved in random patterns, diving and spinning in ways that confused the targeting systems. They were not trying to destroy the warships. They were trying to blind them. The first ship lost its forward sensors when fighter fired 2 missiles directly into the array. The ship did not explode, but it could no longer see clearly. It began firing wildly, and 2 of its shots struck other vessels. 7 frowned. This was not how battles were supposed to go. On the ground, Sergeant Amy led her squad through the forests outside Riverside. She was 35, with short red hair and a scar across her chin from a training accident years ago. Her squad consisted of 12 Marines, all volunteers who had stayed behind when the evacuation began. Sergeant, enemy landing ships detected, her scanner operator reported. 3 vessels coming down 2 kilometers north. Amy smiled grimly. Perfect, let them land. We have a welcome party prepared. The landing ships touched down in a clearing. Their doors opened and soldiers marched out in perfect rows. They were massive creatures, each one carrying weapons that could destroy a building with a single shot. The squad leader looked around at the empty forest. Where are the humans? I was told there would be resistance. A small object landed at his feet. He looked down. The explosion destroyed half his squad before they could react. Amy and her team burst from their hiding positions. They did not fight like the expected. They did not stand in the open and exchange fire. They attacked from shadows, threw explosives, and disappeared before they could aim their weapons. Within 10 minutes, all 3 landing ships were burning wreckage. 50 soldiers lay dead. Amy had lost 2 of her Marines. Fall back to position Beta, she ordered. There will be more coming. In orbit, 7 received reports that made her claws tighten with anger. 3 landing ships destroyed. Her fleet's formation disrupted by 40 tiny fighters. Casualties among her soldiers far higher than expected. How is this possible? She demanded. These are supposed to be a primitive species. Commander, the evacuation transports are escaping. We are unable to intercept them while dealing with the fighters. 7 made her decision. Ignore the transports. All ships focus fire on those fighters, destroy them all. The full attention of 500 warships turned toward 40 human pilots. Saw the storm of fire coming. He had known this moment would arrive. They had bought almost 90 minutes for the evacuation. 90 minutes meant tens of thousands of lives saved. All pilots, he said calmly, it has been an honor. Keep fighting until you cannot fight anymore. The sky filled with light. When the battle ended, only 3 human fighters remained. Ship was damaged beyond repair, spinning toward the planet's surface. He managed to eject before it crashed. He landed hard in a field of tall grass. His leg was broken, his body covered in burns, but he was alive. A search team found him 6 hours later. Amy's Marines had continued their guerrilla attacks, making it impossible for them to hunt for survivors in peace. Easy, pilot, Amy said as they loaded him onto a stretcher. You did good up there. 90% of the civilians got out because of you. Looked up at the sky. The fleet now controlled New Montana completely. The colony had fallen. But they had made the Empire bleed for it. Far away on the bridge of her command ship, 7 prepared her report to High Overlord. She had won the battle. New Montana belonged to the now. But she had lost over 30 ships. Nearly 1,000 soldiers were dead, against a colony with minimal defenses. High Overlord, she said carefully when the communication connected, New Montana is secured. However, I must report that human resistance was more significant than expected. Yellow eyes narrowed on the screen. Explain. They fight differently than any species we have encountered. They do not follow predictable patterns. They attack weak points we did not know we had. Their soldiers continue fighting even when surrounded and outnumbered. Are you telling me that a handful of colonists caused you difficulty, Fleet Commander? 7 felt fear for the first time in many years. I am telling you that if we face their main military force, we should not expect an easy victory. Was silent for a long moment, then he laughed. You worry too much, 7. This was a border colony with outdated equipment. Their main worlds will fall just as easily. Continue the advance. I want their home planet within 6 months. The communication ended. 7 stared at the blank screen. She had served the Empire for 40 years. She had conquered countless worlds. But for the first time, she wondered if they had made a terrible mistake. The humans had lost New Montana, but they had proven something that would echo across the galaxy. The news of New Montana spread across human space like fire through dry grass. Every screen showed the same images. The burning colony, the escaping transports, the 40 pilots who had faced 500 warships. People watched in silence. Then they watched again. And then humanity got angry. President Daniel Cooper stood before the United Earth Assembly in the Great Hall on Luna. He was 58 years old, a former teacher who had entered politics to make peace, not war. But some moments required a different kind of leader. 3 days ago, he said, the Empire attacked our colony of New Montana. They killed civilians. They burned our homes. They believe this attack will make us afraid. He paused and looked across the assembly. Representatives from every human world sat in their seats, watching him. They were wrong. The hall erupted in applause that lasted for 3 full minutes. Today, I am authorizing total mobilization of all Earth forces. Every ship, every soldier, every resource we have will be committed to this war. We did not start this conflict, but I promise you we will finish it. The message reached every human world within hours. Enlistment centers that normally processed a few hundred volunteers per day suddenly faced lines that stretched for kilometers. Young people, old people, men and women of every background came to add their names to the military roster. On Mars, factories that built civilian vehicles switched to producing warships. On Titan, mining operations doubled their output to provide raw materials. On 100 different worlds, humanity prepared for the fight of its existence. General Maria Santos commanded the Strategic Planning Division from a bunker deep beneath Luna's surface. She was short and thin with silver streaks in her black hair. She had spent 30 years studying military history, looking for patterns and weaknesses that others missed. Now she had a war to plan. "Show me the fleet positions," she said. A holographic map filled the room. Red dots marked forces. Blue dots marked human defenses. The red outnumbered the blue by almost 3-1. Admiral Porter stood beside her. "They expect us to defend our border colonies. Standard military thinking says we should spread our forces across the front line." "Standard thinking is wrong," Maria replied. "They are overconfident. They think this will be easy because every war they have fought has been easy. We need to use that against them." She touched the map and the display changed. "We fall back from the outer colonies, let them advance, draw them deeper into our space. You want to give them more territory. I want to stretch their supply lines, make them overextend. And while they think they are winning, we prepare the real attack." Porter studied the map. "What real attack?" Maria smiled. "Come with me, there is something you need to see." They traveled to a secret facility on the dark side of Luna. The entrance was hidden inside what looked like an abandoned mining operation. Guards checked their identities 3 times before letting them pass. Inside, Dr. Cole waited for them. He was thin and nervous, with glasses that he constantly adjusted. He had spent 15 years working on projects that officially did not exist. "Admiral General," he said, "welcome to Project." He led them through corridors carved into the rock. Finally, they emerged into an enormous cavern. Inside sat hundreds of weapon platforms, each one the size of a small ship. "What am I looking at?" Porter asked. "Automated defense stations," explained. "We have been hiding them throughout human space for the past decade. They are invisible to normal sensors. They can destroy a warship with a single shot, and we have over 2,000 of them." Porter let out a low whistle. "The fleet will sail right past them without knowing they exist." "Until we activate them," Maria said. "When the time is right, we can cut off their retreat, trap their entire fleet inside our space." In another part of the facility, they found Captain Heather running final checks on her vessel. The Silent Fury was a stealth carrier, designed to be invisible to every known form of detection. It carried 100 special operations fighters and 300 of humanity's best soldiers. Heather was 40 years old with calm gray eyes and steady hands. She had spent her entire career in special operations, doing jobs that never appeared in any official record. "Captain," Maria said, "your mission is critical. While our main fleet keeps the occupied, you will take Silent Fury behind their lines, destroy their communication relays, cut the connections between their fleet and there." Heather nodded. "Without communications, their fleet loses coordination. Each ship will have to make decisions alone." "Exactly. They rely on centralized command. Take that away and they become confused." "Understood, General. We will be ready." As Maria and Porter left the facility, they received word that something unexpected was happening. Representatives from other galactic species were requesting secret meetings with human diplomats. The and 4 other species that had been conquered by the all sent messages with the same offer. They would share intelligence about weaknesses in exchange for human protection after the war. They smell blood, Porter said. They sense the might actually lose. Then we accept their help, Maria replied. Every piece of information helps. At Rally Point Omega, hidden in an asteroid field far from any sensor, the human fleet gathered. 3,000 warships, the largest force humanity had ever assembled. Crews trained day and night, practicing maneuvers and tactics designed specifically for fighting the. Admiral Porter addressed them via fleet-wide broadcast. You know why we are here, she said. They believe they can take whatever they want. They believe smaller species exist only to be conquered. They are wrong. Images appeared on every screen. The pilots of New Montana, the Marines who had fought on the ground, the civilians who had escaped because brave people bought them time. We are not fighting for revenge. We are fighting because some things must be defended. Our homes, our families, our right to exist as free people. They do not understand this. They will learn. She paused. In 12 days, we begin our counterattack. By the time we are finished, the galaxy will never forget what happens when you test humanity. Get ready. We have work to do. The fleet began final preparations. On the Of Prime, High Overlord studied reports of human activity with growing impatience. His advisors told him the humans were building more ships. His spies reported unusual movement in their space. They are preparing to defend themselves, one advisor said. Perhaps we should increase our forces before the next attack. Dismissed the suggestion with a wave of his hand. The humans are desperate. They know they cannot win. These preparations are the actions of frightened creatures hopping to delay the inevitable. High Overlord, Fleet Commander 7 suggests caution. Her reports indicate that human tactics are unpredictable. 7 is becoming soft, growled. I will not slow our conquest because of a few lucky victories by primitives. Order the fleet to accelerate the timeline. I want human space completely occupied within 4 months. The order went out across the Empire. More ships were sent to the front. More soldiers prepared for invasion. They had no idea that they were walking into a trap. In her cabin aboard the Resolute, Admiral Porter looked at a photograph of her family. Her husband had died. The attack began at midnight Galactic Standard Time. 17 star systems, simultaneous strikes, no warning. Admiral Porter stood on the bridge of the Resolute as her fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel directly behind the formation at Nebula. The enemy had expected them to defend their remaining colonies. They had not expected humanity to attack. All ships weapons free, Porter commanded. Show them what happens when they wake the sleeping giant. 1,000 human warships opened fire at once. The first volley destroyed 200 vessels before they could even turn to face the threat. The nebula's gases lit up with explosions that could be seen from light years away. Fleet Commander 7 had been overseeing the occupation of a human mining station when the attack began. Alarms screamed across her command ship as reports flooded in from every sector. Commander, we are under attack at heavy losses. Commander, human forces have appeared at 3. Our garrison is requesting support. Commander, we have lost contact with the communication relay at Station Omega. That last report made 7's blood run cold. She immediately tried to contact High Overlord on the nothing. She tried to reach the other fleet commanders. Static. Somewhere in the darkness of space, Captain Heather smiled as her team finished destroying the last relay in the sector. The Silent Fury had spent 3 days slipping past patrols, placing charges on every communication node they could find. All relays eliminated, her communications officer reported. The fleet is deaf and blind. Good, Heather replied. Now let us give them something else to worry about. Set course for their supply depot at 4, time to cut off their food. Without central coordination, the fleet began to fall apart. Each commander made decisions based on incomplete information. Some retreated when they should have attacked. Others attacked when they should have retreated. Ships that had always fought as one unified force now stumbled like blind creatures in the dark. At Nebula, Admiral Porter pressed the advantage. Her ships moved in formations that changed every few minutes, never giving the time to adapt. Human pilots flew like demons, targeting engines and weapons arrays with precision that seemed impossible. Admiral, her tactical officer called out, Enemy flagship identified, Fleet Commander 7's vessel. Porter studied the display. The massive command ship was trying to rally the remaining enemy forces. If that ship fell, the battle would end. All cruisers focus fire on that flagship. Bring it down. 50 human cruisers turned their weapons on 7's ship. The commander fought back with everything she had, but it was not enough. Shield generators failed. Hull breaches opened across the vessel. Fires spread through the lower decks. 7 stood on her burning bridge and watched the human fleet surround her. She had conquered 20 worlds in her career. She had never known defeat until today. Order all remaining ships to retreat to the, she commanded. Tell them, she paused. The communications were still dead. She could not tell anyone anything. A human missile struck the bridge. The last thing 7 saw was fire. On the ground, the liberation had begun. Sergeant Amy led her expanded Marine force onto the surface of New Montana. The colony she had once defended was now occupied territory. Soldiers patrolled the streets. Human prisoners worked in forced labor camps. Not for much longer. Team Alpha, take the power station. Team Beta, free the prisoners in Camp 7. Everyone else with me. We are taking back our colony. The garrison at New Montana numbered 3,000 soldiers. They had heavy weapons, fortified positions, and air support. Amy had 800 Marines, and the rage of an entire species behind her. The battle lasted 6 hours. Human soldiers attacked from every direction, using tactics they could not predict. They came through sewers and air vents. They attacked at night using technology that let them see in complete darkness. They turned captured weapons against their former owners. When dawn broke over Riverside, the colonial flag flew again above the administration building. Amy stood in the central square and watched the last prisoners being led away. Around her, freed colonists embraced each other and wept with joy. Children who had been born during the occupation saw sunlight for the first time without fear. Sergeant, one of her officers, reported, all 3 occupied colonies in this sector have been liberated. Minimal casualties. Amy nodded. It was a good day, but they were not finished yet. Across human space, the story repeated itself. They had expected a long war of slow conquest. Instead, they found themselves pushed back on every front. Their supply lines were cut. Their communications were destroyed. Their soldiers, trained to fight against frightened civilians, discovered that human Marines were something entirely different. Admiral Porter received reports throughout the day. Victory at 3. Victory at the supply depot. 14 of 17 contested systems had been reclaimed. Admiral, her communications officer, said, we are receiving a message. It is from High Overlord. Porter raised an eyebrow. Put it through. His face appeared on the main screen. He looked older than before, tired, perhaps even afraid. Admiral Porter, he said, his deep voice now strained. This war has gone far enough. I propose a ceasefire. We will withdraw to our original borders. You will accept our territory as it was before the conflict began. Porter let him wait in silence for a long moment. High Overlord, she finally said, you came to our diplomatic station and threatened to destroy our species. You attacked our colonies, you killed our people, you enslaved our citizens, and now you want us to simply stop. The losses on both sides have been significant. Continuing this war benefits no one. You are wrong. Continuing this war benefits everyone you have conquered in the past. All the species you crushed beneath your empire. They are watching this war. They are watching you lose. His yellow eyes burned with anger. You would refuse peace. I would refuse your peace. Here is what will happen instead. The human fleet will continue its advance. We will liberate every species you have enslaved. And when we reach you will answer for your crimes. This is madness. You cannot threaten the Empire. Porter leaned forward. We warned you not to test us. You did not listen. Now you will face the consequences. This communication is over. The screen went dark. Around her, the bridge crew sat in stunned silence. No one had ever spoken to the ruler of the Empire that way. No one had ever dared. Porter turned to her navigation officer. Set course for space. It is time to finish what they started. The fleet moved forward. Behind them, project activated. 2,000 hidden weapons platforms came online across human space, sealing every escape route they might try to use. The trap was complete. The people who had lived under rule for 30 years watched news reports of human victories. For the first time in a generation, they allowed themselves to hope. On Prime, resistance fighters who had been hiding in mountains received weapons dropped by 10,000 human warships surrounded the planet Prime. The hung in space like a dark purple jewel, its cities glowing beneath thick clouds. This was the heart of an empire that had conquered half the galaxy. Today, that empire would fall. Admiral Porter stood on the bridge of the Resolute and looked at the planet that had threatened to destroy her species. The journey here had taken 3 weeks. In that time, they had lost everything. Their fleets were destroyed. Their conquered territories had risen in rebellion. Their allies had abandoned them. Now only there remained. Admiral, her communications officer said, "Ambassador is ready to broadcast." Porter nodded, put him through to all frequencies. Appeared on screens across the world. He looked tired but determined. Behind him, the stars were filled with human warships. "People of the Empire," he said, "I am Ambassador of United Earth. Your military has been defeated, your empire has collapsed, but we do not wish to destroy your species. We offer you one final chance for peace." He paused to let the words settle. "Surrender now, remove High Overlord from power, accept responsibility for your crimes against other species. Do this and your civilians will be protected, your cities will not be harmed, you will have a future. Refuse, and we will be forced to demonstrate that humanity's mercy has limits. You have 1 hour to respond." The broadcast ended. Porter turned to her tactical display. The still had defenses around their planet. Orbital stations, ground-based weapons, a small fleet of remaining warships, enough to make a final assault costly. She hoped they would choose surrender, but she was prepared for them to choose differently. Deep inside his palace on Prime, High Overlord watched the human broadcast with cold fury. His advisors stood around him in silence. They had urged him to surrender days ago. He had refused to listen. "They dare to give us terms," he growled. "They dare to tell the what to do." "High Overlord," one advisor said carefully, "our military is gone. Our allies have abandoned us. Perhaps wisdom suggests we accept their offer." Turned on the advisor with rage in his glowing eyes. "You would have me surrender to primitives, to creatures who were building mud huts while we ruled the stars." "I would have our people survive, High Overlord." Grabbed the advisor by the throat and lifted him off the ground. "The do not surrender. We have never surrendered. We will fight until the last soldier falls." He threw the advisor aside and activated his military command system. "All defense forces, prepare for battle. We will show these humans that they are not finished yet." On the bridge of the Resolute, the hour passed without a response. Porter closed her eyes for a moment. She had hoped it would not come to this, but some lessons could only be taught one way. "All ships," she commanded, "begin the assault." The human fleet moved forward like a wave of steel and fire. Orbital stations opened fire, but they were outnumbered beyond measure. One by one, they fell. The planetary defense weapons fired beams of energy that could destroy mountains. Human ships dodged and weaved, using the debris of destroyed stations as cover. Bombers swooped low and dropped their payloads on the weapon installations. Within 2 hours, the orbital defenses were gone. Sergeant Amy stood in the cargo bay of a drop ship with 300 Marines around her. They were the best soldiers humanity had. Today, they would capture the capital. "Listen up," she said. "Our target is Palace. We go in fast, we secure the building, we capture the High Overlord, minimize civilian casualties. We are not here for revenge. We are here for justice." The dropships fell through the atmosphere like meteors. Anti-aircraft fire rose to meet them, but human fighters cleared a path through the defenses. The ships landed in the plaza outside the palace, and the Marines charged out with weapons ready. The palace guards fought hard. They were the elite soldiers of the Empire, the best warriors their species had produced, but they had never faced opponents like human Marines. Amy led her team through the main entrance, clearing room after room. Soldiers fell before them. The palace, built to showcase power and glory, became a battlefield. They found in his throne room. He stood alone, surrounded by the bodies of his guards. His golden bands gleamed in the emergency lighting. In his hands, he held a weapon large enough to destroy a vehicle. "Human," he said when Amy entered, You think you have won, but I will not be captured like some common criminal." He raised the weapon. Amy was faster. Her shot hit his arm and the weapon clattered to the floor. Other Marines rushed forward and forced him to his knees. For the first time in his life, High Overlord knelt before another species. "It is over," Amy said. "Your war is over, your empire is over. You will stand trial for what you have done." Looked up at her with hatred burning in his yellow eyes. "You cannot judge me. I am the ruler of 1,000 worlds." "Not anymore." Outside the palace, the fighting ended. Soldiers laid down their weapons when they saw their overlord in chains. Across the planet, the resistance collapsed. The war was over. President Daniel Cooper addressed the galaxy from the steps of the palace 1 week later. Behind him, flags from every species that had conquered flew together. Humans and dozens of others stood united. "Today we mark the end of the empire," Cooper said. "For centuries they believed that strength gave them the right to conquer. They believed that other species existed only to serve them. They were wrong." He looked at the assembled crowd. "They will not be destroyed. Their people will survive, but their military will be disbanded. Their conquered territories will be freed, and their leaders will face justice for the crimes they committed." Was tried before the Galactic Assembly 3 months later. The evidence against him filled thousands of hours of testimony. Survivors from a dozen species told stories of cruelty, slavery, and murder. When the verdict came, no one was surprised. Guilty on all counts. The sentence was eternal imprisonment on a station orbiting a dead star, where he would live out his remaining years in silence and darkness. As guards led him away, looked at the human delegation one final time. "You warned me," he said quietly. "I should have listened." Admiral Porter watched him go without expression. 1 year after the war ended, a memorial was built on New Montana. It stood in the center of Riverside, a tall pillar of white stone with names carved into its surface. The names of every human who had died in the war. Admiral Porter stood before it on the anniversary of the first battle. Around her, thousands of people had gathered to remember. "We came here today to honor those who gave everything," she said. "The pilots who flew against impossible odds, the soldiers who fought when retreat would have been easier, the civilians who refused to surrender their hope." She touched the stone gently. "They did not die for conquest. They did not die for glory. They died so that future generations would never have to kneel before tyrants. They died so that the galaxy would know that humanity stands for something." She turned to face the crowd. "The empire is gone, but new threats will always arise. New tyrants will always believe they can take what they want. When that happens, remember what we learned here. Remember that courage matters. Remember that unity is strength. Remember that even the smallest species can change the course of history." She raised her hand in salute. "To those who fell, to those who fought, to those who will carry their memory forward. Humanity remembers, humanity endures, humanity will never kneel." The crowd answered with a roar that echoed across the rebuilt colony. In the evening, Porter walked alone through the memorial garden. She stopped at one name on the wall, Lieutenant, who had led 40 pilots against 500 ships. He had survived the war and recovered from his injuries. Now he commanded his own carrier group. And supply ships, they prepared to rise up against their occupiers. Across the galaxy, the Empire began to crack. Admiral Porter stood alone in her quarters that night looking at the stars. Tomorrow they would enter territory. The final battle was approaching. She thought about the pilots who had died at New Montana, the Marines who had fought against impossible odds, the civilians who had refused to surrender even when everything seemed lost. 10 years ago, her daughter now served on a cruiser somewhere in the fleet. "We warned them," she said quietly. "They should have listened." She put the photograph away and went to the bridge. There was still much to do. The countdown to humanity's counterattack had begun. Y will find us ready, and they will learn that some warnings should have been taken seriously. The Resolute undocked from Nexus 7 and turned toward Earth. Behind them, the fleet was already gathering. The countdown to war had begun. Neither side knew it yet, but the galaxy was about to change forever.